Okay, so the substitute teacher will instruct you to read to each other 899. So each team have your coach read 899 A and B to the team, and then discuss a strategy. And this slide is up here for inspiration. So take about 5 minutes to answer A and B for 899, and the sub will hit pause now. All right, now that you've had a chance to look at 899 with each other and answer A and B, I want to make sure that everybody understood it the way that I understand it. So how could we express the slope of the radius in terms of sine and cosine? So remember that if I have this little angle here, um, the sine of that angle is opposite over hypotenuse. So in this case, it would be whatever this length is, because remember that this is just a right triangle. And if you know the value of the hypotenuse is 1, and you know that the angle that you're looking for is this little angle in here, then you can find the side over here, or the y-coordinate, by taking the sine. You can find the x-coordinate by taking the cosine. And we talked all about that. Remember, slope of a line you find by change in y divided by change in x. And so in this case, since y is the sine of theta and x is the cosine of theta, we could find the slope by taking sine of theta over cosine of theta. But there's another way that we could find the slope of that line. Because remember, we have a right triangle, so we have a lot of different ways of thinking about that using the trig that we've used. So we could look at it as slope equals opposite over adjacent. So the slope of this line equals the opposite side over the adjacent side. So the change in y over the change in x. And another name for opposite over adjacent is tan theta. So the big news of the day, tangent of theta equals sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. And it represents the slope of the radius on a unit circle. So hopefully that's what you took out of 899. Now let's move on to 8100. Your sub should be handing out a sheet to you right now. It's the 817 resource page. You're going to use that 817 resource page to investigate the tangent function. So in your book under 8100, you'll see some discussion points. I would like to have all of the teachers' pets for each group read 8100 and the discussion points out loud to your team. Just take about 5 minutes to do that right now. So the sub is going to pause. And now that you've had a chance to read 8100, you're going to copy and complete the chart. Before you start working on that, hopefully you have all of the values for those right triangles. But just in case you don't, I'm going to put them up here. The 30, 60, 90 triangle is down here. Don't pay any attention to that circle up there. It's for a different problem. But right now, just look down here. So in other words, if you're looking at the 30, 60, 90 triangle, I can see that the sine of a 30-degree triangle is equal to the opposite, which is 1/2, divided by the hypotenuse, which in this case is 1. That's telling me that the sine of 30 degrees is equal to 1/2. So if I need an exact value, the exact value is 1/2. I'm not going to put that as 0.5. The cosine of 30 degrees, if you remember from geometry when you learned all those side lengths, it's going to be the adjacent side. So in this case, it's the square root of 3 over 2. well, the square root of 3 over 2. So this is the cosine. Let's just take that, put it over here. There. Cosine of 30 degrees, the sine of 30 degrees. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be finding then the tangent. So I knew that the sine of 30 degrees, and they're using radians, which we studied on Monday. So pi over 6 is that first notch on your circle. So pi over 6 is just like the 30-degree one. So however you want to think about that. And to find the exact value of tangent, what I would do is I would take 1/2 and I would divide that by square root of 3 over 2. And does anybody remember what divided by means when you're working with fractions? Yes, it means multiply and flip that second one. So it's going to be times 2 over the square root of 3. Now, I don't know how much of this you did in geometry, but in here, we're going to leave the radical symbol in the denominator normally, and we'll learn a way to get rid of that later. But for now, that's a fine answer, 1 divided by the square root of 3. So that's the exact value. Then you can just pull out your calculator and get the decimal approximation. So if you put that into your calculator, you should get 0.58. And if everybody does that now, you can check and make sure that you get the same answer that I got. And you're going to proceed and fill out the rest of the values in that chart. So the sub will pause for about 10 minutes so that you can go ahead and do that now. Okay, now that you've had a chance to do that, we are going to look at the rest of problems 101 and 102. So you filled out the chart, and now you're being asked to draw 5 new triangles in part, in part B, plot the tangent values on the graph to the right of the unit circle. So you should have the 817 resource page, and now you're going to plot those points. We're going to see what the graph of tangent looks like. And so just like we graphed sine and cosine, now you're graphing tangent. So go ahead with your team, spend about, I'd say this is probably going to take a good 15, maybe 20 minutes. And you're going to work on all of 101 and 102. So those problems are the further guidance section. So the subcomposite for, I'd say 15 or 20 minutes so that you get a chance to work on all of 101 and 102. Okay, now that you've had a chance to work on 101 and 102 and answer all of those questions the best that you can, and take a look at problem number 103. Problem number 103 is actually just asking you to find the coordinates of the point. So read that with your team and answer A and B to the best of your ability. They do give you a hint that drawing a unit circle might help. So you see that I've drawn a unit circle here. And when I travel around, as I told you in class the other day, I go pi over 6. This is actually 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6. So you can count around just like I showed you in class the other day, or you can find another way, whatever works for you. But to answer these questions, it might really help to have a circle like this drawn. And so if I'm looking for the tangent of 7 pi over 6, I might recognize right off the bat that this is much like a 30-degree angle. And so I would use sine divided by cosine to find the tangent. So in this case, it would be 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2, which we just did. But the thing that you're going to have to be aware of now is the sign, positive or negative. So we just figured out that that equals 1 over the square root of 3. And now I'm thinking about the sign. Is tangent going to be positive or negative in this quadrant? So remember, these are like quadrants. And yes, sine is negative and cosine is negative. And what happens when I divide a negative by a negative? I get a positive. And so the tangent, this is for part B, the tangent of 7 pi over 6 would be 1 over the square root of 3. So that's how you can do that. Now figuring out these points I think you'll be fine with, because remember that's just sine of whatever, cosine of whatever. So I'm going to give you guys, or the sub will give you about 15 minutes to complete A and B for 103 by pausing it now. And now that you've completed lesson 817, you should have at least a half hour, if not more, left. You should be able to complete this entire assignment during class today. The sub will be marking down how you're working individually, and your individual behavior will be scored under individual assessments. So that's like the same thing as taking a test. If you are working on your homework and you're doing the right thing the entire class period, you will get full credit for your individual assessment today. If the sub has to write your name down because you're misbehaving or you're causing a problem in class, you won't. So good luck, everybody. I miss you and I can't wait to see you again. Have a great day. Bye.